My name is Jessica Anderson. I am the wife of Jamola Anderson.
My name is Tanya. My husband's name is Ryan.
My name is Sarah Allen, and I am married to Ashton Allen.
My name is Kaylin. I'm the wife of Kevin.
We have 2 young boys.
We have 3 children, ages 21, 19, and 16.
I have 2 children with him. They are twins, Noah and Alina, and they are 2 years old.
And we have 2 children.
7 years ago.
And 27 years ago,
2 years ago, going on 3.
I married a black man.
So at first I refused to watch the video. A lot of those things, because they have been so reoccurring and they've happened so many times, it gives me a lot of overwhelmingness, anxiety. It's just not something that I can bear to watch. And I didn't have to watch it to know what the outcome was or what it was about. However, the first day that I did see the post streaming online, I almost withdrew from social media during that time because I had to process all of the emotions that I was feeling, and the biggest emotion that I felt, or the biggest thing that I felt, was confusion. And the confusion came from a question in my mind that was like, what can we possibly do to make this stop? I feel like I just saw a situation that just had no solution, because I feel like this is something that's been happening for years and years and years, and then to see it just keep reoccurring and happening again, it made me feel like, so what can we even do about this? Is there even a solution? I'm confused as to what the solution is, because it's not stopping. So I want to say that the biggest emotion I felt was confusion as to finding out what is it, what can there be done for it to stop.
It was surreal, unbelievable, hard to imagine that this is still happening in 2020. The biggest thing that impacted me was the fact that the perpetrators have the arrogance thinking that they can get away with this. Even with social media, having videos, and the length of time that things are taking to get resolved, and officers getting charged, etc., as everyone has seen in the media. That's the biggest thing that's impacted me. Still feeling the effects of the death of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, and that took 2 months for the officers the people to be charged. It's just hard to believe. With regards to everything surrounding the media, everything in the news, social media, with regards to the death of George Floyd, thinking about the situation with Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein, and the Me Too movement that started in 2017, I really am feeling that the time is different, that the different groups in society right now, blacks and whites, are standing together to move forward, to make an impact statement with regards to the death of George Floyd. And I'm really believing that it's going to be a different situation moving forward. We have to continue standing together to make a change at this time.
When I watched the video of George Floyd's murder, what impacted me was a feeling of numbness. The fact that I knew how the story was going to end without watching the entire clip in its entirety, although I did watch it, it hit close to home. He was somebody's son. He was somebody's father. He was somebody's partner. All those things resonate with me because my husband is somebody's son. He is the father of our 2 kids. he is a black man. The other thing that really hit hard was the fact that we're raising our 2 boys and that my husband has to live in North America or in countries that racism exists like this. That the officers involved had no emotion. It was all too easy, like eating breakfast, murdering somebody. It's just ridiculous. So all those things combined just filled me with a lot of different emotions. Once the numbness passed, filled me with rage, filled me with sadness, filled me with anger. I felt like I needed to do more. I couldn't even imagine what other friends and family of the black community felt. And I just knew that this needs to stop. We need to change.
As always with these situations, in any situation of grief, you go through stages. I think that there's anger and sadness, and then fear is the ultimate thing that impacts me. Sadness for that specific person and their family and the community, and sadness that I know that this happens all the time, and that the ones that we see on camera are the ones that get played in the news and are lucky enough to go nationwide, are just the few of them. There's so many more. And then the fear is that this could be one of my loved ones, my husband, my friends, someone that I know and care for and love. So that's what impacts me the most when I saw this particular situation in all of them. I feel like we encounter racism. He encounters it. I say we. He encounters it probably on a daily basis, and maybe it's not so blatant racism, but it's the jokes or the snide comments or just the looks that he receives or we receive if we walk into a particular place, or just the comments from people that maybe they think are funny or they don't even understand that are racist. Specifically with my husband, of course he played sports in college. Of course he plays sports, right? Because he's supposed to be good at sports. He's black, right? Things like that, or just comments and looks and stares. So those are examples of racism that I feel like we deal with, like I said, probably on a daily basis, especially for him, where he works or places he goes. He probably is sometimes one of the only black people there.
There are a number of examples of racism that I can share with you. In consideration of our time, I'll only share a couple of them. One, and some are more severe than others, but they're all bad because they're all acts of racism or acts of hate. One time, Jamal came to pick me up from a dinner, and outside the restaurant there was a group of white men just chatting, and when Jamal pulled up, he had parked the car right in front of them, and I came out of the restaurant, and he came to greet me and help me with what I was carrying and put it in the car and get the door for me. And one of the white men in the group said loud enough for us to hear, because he wanted us to hear. He said, "Oh, they're just giving nice cars to anybody these days." And so, I mean, we were driving a Lexus at the time, and yeah, that was one example. There's been countless others. Another quick one was when we were in Mexico on one of our first trips. I had, at dinner, I had some seafood that I've never had before and had an allergic reaction. My face blew up, literally. It looked like someone punched me in the eye. And it felt that way, it looked that way, and Jamal confirmed that that was in fact the case. He did say to me, because he knew that I can be emotional, and since that's never happened to me, I was starting to get teary-eyed and a little worked up, and I didn't know, if I needed any medical attention, and we weren't in our home country, so I was a bit nervous about that. He said, listen, Jess, I don't know if this is going to happen, but people may look at you and they may think that I'm the reason why you have that black eye. So I don't want you to not feel what you're feeling, but try to limit the tears and the sadness. Like, we'll figure it out, we'll fix it. So he said that to me, and I was thinking, like, why would people even think that? Especially everyone that we've met, like, they could see how he's such a great guy. So lo and behold, we go to the main area of the hotel where the gift shop was, where we could get the allergy medication. And when Jamal went into the store, one of the entertainment staff came by and talked to me and said, asked if I was okay. And I said, yeah, I just, had something at dinner, it didn't sit right, and, my face blew up. And he said to me, he's like, in a little more quiet of a voice, did anyone hurt you? And I was like, I was floored. I couldn't even believe that was the next question, but I had said to that person, to the staff, no, no one hurt me. It's definitely something I ate. It was like an instant reaction. And they said, okay, but you could tell that they didn't really fully believe it. Whether, that was straight reflection of a racist act, or I don't know, thinking that boyfriends abuse their girlfriends just because, and Jamal was one of those guys, I don't know, but the fact that we had to have the talk beforehand and then it actually came to fruition, just it's something that I didn't have to experience with other boyfriends, I should say. So that was another one, and then there's countless others, but I'll leave you with the third one. When we were dating, it was earlier in our dating life. We were taking a highway, the Highway 400 in Canada, up to go treetop trekking with a group of friends. And it was supposed to be a really great day. The weather was perfect. We were looking forward to it. So we're on the 400. Jamal's driving. I'm in the passenger seat, and a car. And if you know Jamal, I have to say this: he's an excellent driver. So this is why this was a bit weird when it first happened. So the car comes around and cuts us off, and then it slows down on purpose, like it was trying to make a point of something. And then the car goes back on the other side and does the same thing again. And now this car pulls up next to the driver's side, and they're trying to say something. Two white men again in the car next to us, and they're looking at Jamal, and you could tell that the words that they used, one of them was the N-word, which I'm not going to say, but you know what I'm talking about. And they mimicked a fake gun and pulled the trigger at him. Now imagine, I was floored again. Like, this is unbelievable that this happens in this day and age, but we all know it does because we've all seen social media. It was early in our relationship. Jamal kind of, you could tell it impacted him, but things happened to him so often and so much, he kind of just didn't want to ruin the date, I guess, and didn't make a big deal about it, but you knew that it affected him. We went on, and the rest of the date obviously went well, but that was one of the more impactful experiences that I had with him.
So one example I'm going to share, we had a real estate business for over 20 years. And during that time, we had rental properties. Ryan would show the units to prospective tenants with regards to the rental properties. And and the tenants would be questioning, who's the owner and how long have you worked for the company, not even assuming or asking the question whether, he was the owner. They just had disbelief the fact that, a black man could own rental properties or be a property investor. When they found out he was the owner, they suddenly had a change of heart with regards to renting the unit. And it got to the point where I had to start showing the apartments because I'm white. And, there'd be an increased likelihood that they would rent because of the fact that I'm white. There's also the fear of vandalism from other tenants, with regards to knowing that Ryan was the owner. Vandalism on the property. There's a couple of circumstances that did happen. People dumping extra garbage into our dumpsters, etc. Could be related as well. Another example with regards to racism that Ryan has experienced is with regarding our rental property business. He had set up an appointment with a real estate agent to invest in a property, met with the agent, and knowing that Ryan was the owner, the agent didn't believe he was the owner or the investor and kept questioning 3 separate times, was he the tenant of the basement of a property that they were looking at. So
being married with Ashton and being with Ashton, I witnessed a lot of racism, either directly or indirectly, towards him. I dated other black men and they were of lighter skin, but I never witnessed as much racism as I have being with Ashton, who is of darker skin. Anything from, us being out shopping and walking to our car and, somebody calling him the N-word because we were jaywalking or we were crossing the road and they wanted to get by. We were being in a jewelry store and having somebody refer to him as a gorilla. And then other ones that have been a lot more hurtful than those have been indirect racism. So he's gone to pursue certain jobs and he's been top of his class. He's been putting in the hard work. He's dedicated his time, his sweat, his energy. He's invested so much of himself into this specific job that he was into. We were waking up early. I was, making him breakfast. He was top of his class. He wasn't late. Passed all of the exams that he needed to pass. And one of the last exams that he had to pass was for, this job was called it was for Durham Transit. So he had to do a drive test. He had already done the whole route already before. He did everything the way it was supposed to be done. And then when it was finally time to do the actual test, there was a lady on there, a white woman that was supposed to be marking him. And as he was making the turn, it was a left turn at an intersection. She thought that he was gonna hit a curb, so she advised him, hey, stop the bus. And he was like, okay, what am I doing? And she was like, there's a curb. And he's like, yeah, I know, I see it. I'm going to fix myself. And she was like, okay, no problem, carry on. He adjusted himself. He did not hit the curb. He continued on with the route. She made it seem like everything was fine. And then she failed him. When they had a conversation afterwards as to how the test went, there was nothing much that she could, she didn't even really know what to say as to why she failed him. She tried to say that he was going to take that turn too wide, but he never actually hit the curb. He actually saw the curb before she let him know, and he had adjusted himself. So that was kind of like an indirect form of racism. I feel like that lady just wanted to bury him. When it came down to them talking over about what happened in the test, she had nothing to say. She couldn't even defend herself. And they just let him go just like that after putting in weeks and months of work into that job and passing every stage and doing everything that he was supposed to be doing. So that was very detrimental to him. He was very devastated. I feel like all of these indirect forms of racism where he's tried to pursue a job that he loves or a job that he needs or that he really wants, he does everything that he's supposed to do. He goes above and beyond to invest all of himself into getting that job and to provide for his family, and the doors are just constantly closed on him. Even though he has the experience, he has the education, he has all the references that he could ever have. Like, all of his resumes and his background is like immaculate. But for some reason, these doors just have been struggled for him to open for him.
Biggest thing would be the fact that he's had to work more than twice as hard for everything that he's worked for. He's a firefighter. Out of the 440 firefighters, there's 3 black men. There are 5 biracial men. And over the last few years, they've hired 40 women. And out of the 40 women, none of them are of any other race than Caucasian. So that being said, when he did get hired as a firefighter, a lot of people said, well, you know, oh, they're hiring minorities, that's how he got in, that's why they hired him. You're disregarding the fact that he has a university education and, you know, aced all the tests and got in on his own merit. And also another factor with regards to the pain he's felt, that he's been under a microscope for his entire life. Having to be on his best behavior at work, in his personal life, being one of the only black men on the fire department. He's, you know, been promoted to captain by him going through the exams, and he's the first black captain on his department. And, you know, making sure he's, you know, all on his P's and Q's, best behavior in terms of, you know, making sure that they don't have a reason why he can't be promoted. With regards to his personal life, my parents didn't know that we were dating the first year and a half that we were dating, due to the fact that they would not agree. And then when he did meet them, he felt, you know, being on his best behavior, having to prove himself, being black, that he had to make sure that, you know, he's capable of being a good provider and a good person that their daughter would want to date.
Started a long time ago. He was born black, so with that, you're born into a racist society, and there's a number of things that you have to deal with. Maybe not on a daily, more randomly in terms of the time, but it happens, and it happens more often than not, and it happens all too frequent. So some things are like, you know, when he and I just go out, he'll get stares from my community, or if we're at a restaurant, an Indian restaurant, everybody's staring at us. Maybe they're staring at us because we're different, but they're not smiling. So I don't know what's going on in their head. Or at work, a new screensaver has a group of people of color and a white person, and so the black person that's in this screensaver, his boss will come up to him and say, oh hey, I saw the new screensaver and you're on it, that's really great, huh? Knowing that it's not him, but it's just those little comments that happen all too often. Or if he's driving, not with me, because fortunately when we do drive together, he doesn't get pulled over. But when he is driving on his own in a predominantly black neighborhood, he does get stopped. He's not speeding, he's not running a light, there's no rear light that's not on or missing or what have you. It's just a random stop, I guess is what they call it. But it's not random. It's determined and it's targeted. There's a number of things that, you know, when we go to the mall, if I'm feeling emotional one day, or I'm just having a bad day and I cry, I've been told by him at home, like, feel what you need to feel, but please try not to cry when we're out, because people are just going to look at us and think that, you know, I hurt you. And we don't want to deal with anything that's unnecessary that we don't have to. Yeah, there's so many in our neighborhood. If we're parked in the winter in a no idle zone and he's maybe idling for a minute about to turn the car off, we live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and this happened. One of the white women in the neighborhood came, knocked on the window hard, and said in a very rude manner, "You better be turning that car off. Can't you see the sign?" And something to the effect of, "You're not that bright." Does that happen to anybody else in this neighborhood? It's just ridiculous, the number of things that he's had to face. So does he feel pain? Yes. Is he the type of guy that plays the victim? No, but he definitely is a victim, but he's not. And those are some of the things that I'd say Black men, Black women carry on a day-to-day that non-Black people, I'm sure, I know there's racism with other people of color, but not to don't experience the level of Black men and women.
I think that once we started to have a family, we talked more about it. Just coming to terms with and having the open dialogue of that we were going to bring mixed babies into this society, in this world, and what that would mean. So we talked more about his experiences or just racism overall that maybe he had experienced. And I think that the big thing for him is, again, back to the comments that maybe people make that they don't understand are racist, or the jokes, especially in a workplace environment. And maybe from people that he wouldn't think would do that or say that. And maybe they didn't mean it in a hurtful way, but it still is hurtful. It still is painful. Those jokes aren't funny. So that's the pain that I think I hear from him the most. The blatant racism is more anger when we experience those situations.
I feel like a lot of these things have birthed a lot of discouragement in him. It's put a lot of maybe insecurities in him. It's put a lot of fearfulness in him. He's expressed to me that he feels like he's a failure. He's expressed to me that he's been feeling a lot of depression, that he feels like, you know, when am I ever gonna get a break? He said those things to me. He said to me like, oh my God, I'm getting emotional. He's told me that, you know, like, oh, he's trying to do everything right, and he doesn't know why these doors just won't open for him. And all he wants to do is just provide for his family and take care of his kids and take care of me, and he just wants to have a good income and just do everything right. And despite everything, Ashton, you know, he won't drink, he won't smoke, he follows every rule by the book, and I feel like it just hasn't been fair for him, and it just makes me really angry because he is like everything an employer could want to have in their organization. He's just been very discouraged, and he's just been very hurt. He feels like he just can't catch a break.
I'm gonna say the Black community in general is what I think is their history. My husband and I talk a lot about this, and I'm fortunate to have him around to provide some of that education, but also, you know, there's Google and there's lots of books and lots of movies that people can read. But I guess what I'm trying to say is you hear the comment, well, I didn't enslave you. That was years ago. I have nothing to do with that. And there's no racism now, and I don't see racism, and I'm not a racist. But if you don't speak up about what's happening, if you don't see what's happening, you're part of the problem. And what I think people, not just I was going to say not just white people, all other races other than the Black community need to understand is what happened during slavery, what happened before slavery, and what happened after. So Black people that were brought over in slavery, their culture was ripped from them, their families were ripped from them, their traditions were ripped from them, and they were forced to work and a whole lot of other unfair stuff that happened to them, which anyone can Google or watch a movie about. And then post-slavery, when a lot of the world seems to think that they were now free, they were never free. They were put into certain geographical areas. They were not given the same type of loans that were available to the non-Black community. They were not given the same opportunities, the same jobs. The way our systems were built, they were designed to keep the Black community down. There was no reparations. To this day, they are still being treated like slaves. When you look at the prison system in the US, that's modern day slavery. So there's so much that other races may not understand or may not want to see, but again, that's part of the problem. It's so apparent. If people just put themselves in other people's shoes and truly did that, they would have a better understanding of what the Black community has to go through. In addition to that, and as a result of that, there are things that Black men and women have to think about that other races do not. They have to think about, well, if I get stopped by a cop, I need to remember to keep my hands where they can see them. I need to make sure I say the right things. I need to make sure that my phone's already out and maybe already hit record, because we know it's not going to go the way I say it's the real way, or the real story is not going to come out. They have to, in some cities, be aware of what they're wearing. Little kids can't play with toy guns, but other little kids can. There's another layer, and I'm going to say of BS, that the Black community needs to consider that other races do not. So those would be the two things that I would say: history, and then just that as a result of all of the crap that's been happening to them, the extra layer of BS that they need to consider.
About Black men, the biggest thing that I think other races don't understand is that Black men are not to be feared. They're not a threat. There are bad people in every race, but why does the whole community have to feel the impact of that? He's not to be feared. He's a gentleman. It's just Black men are not to be feared. That's the biggest thing that I think other races don't understand.
So lots of stereotypes out there, which a lot of us are aware of. The fact that they don't understand history and the relevance of it today, that historically, they were forced in, Blacks were forced into slavery, not treated well, and, they're still considered the armpit of society. Stereotypes, that they're violent, they're not, you have to be afraid, that, Black men can't hold down a job, their skills are only in the entertainment or athletic industries. Interesting that I find a lot of, more in the U.S. with regards to sports, that a lot of Caucasians, they'll, buy tickets to go see, different, basketball like NBA or the NFL. However, they are very racist. I find that very interesting. Another stereotype and pain that Ryan has felt, he feels under more pressure, not given as many opportunities. Also, the media and the news, I find, is a big factor in this. They don't really portray Black men in a good light. They're all, robbers and, are doing bad things in society, which is not the case.
I feel what other races feel to focus on and educate themselves on and remember is that Black people and Black men have been oppressed since almost feels like the beginning of time for them in this country and in anywhere in the world. I feel like because the systematic racism has put so much challenges, roadblocks, they've given them lack of opportunities in employment, they've done mass incarcerations for them. I feel like all of those things have made it difficult and have affected a Black man in sustaining and having healthy relationships within the household. So with them mass incarcerating, with them killing, with them, giving them no room to find a good job to, help support their families, I feel like they've removed fathers from their homes. Ashton's father was removed from his home when he was very, very little. Again, due to incarceration, and that's just something that they have consistently done. So it's made it difficult for his mom to it made it difficult for his mom to have, oh God, how do I word this? When I look at his house, his relationships and his household, his mom and in his house was raised with a lot of tough love, a lot of putting Ashton in a position to always figure out his stuff on his own, which has been very beneficial to him because Ashton always digs himself out of any and every situation. He's never had to depend on anybody for anything. However, sometimes I do feel like I want him to come to me more when it comes to any other issues, but because he's not used to having that type of form of love in his household, because his mom always gave him tough love, I feel like that is what's kind of molded Black people and Black men to either come off as cold or come off as, they don't like to talk about their emotions, they don't like to talk about their feelings, they don't like to talk about their business, they don't like to show emotions. His mom, unfortunately didn't grow up with her mom and her father, so she definitely had to build like a tough layer. And I feel like because of the systematic racism and how much challenges and pressure they put on Black has been because of that. And I think that some races don't know how deep, the PTSD or the abuse has affected Black people and Black men.
Just one, sarcasm. Approximately 24 times Ryan has been stopped by the police. Never any of those times has he even getting a small traffic violation. So obviously he's been pulled over being racially profiled. One specific incident that I'll mention is he was with a friend. They had gone out for dinner, stopped at a convenience store for a pack of gum, and got back in the car. Out of nowhere, police car comes zooming over, blocks them in, gets them out of the car, questions them, hand on the gun, and they were basically just at the convenience store getting a pack of gum. That's one incident. Another incident, he was in Montreal, and there's a police officer there, baiting him, calling him the N-word, swearing at him, using the F-word, and trying to get a rise out of them so that they could take further action. And they were basically not doing anything wrong.
2 quick examples, both on trips. One was on our way back from Costa Rica, and we were on a bus with everyone from our resort. We all were going through the security custom lineup. He and I were the only people of color, and he and I were the only ones that got stopped. We had nothing in our bags except for maybe a souvenir or 2. And the person who spoke to me was pretty nice, asked me about where I worked and, what I was doing there, and sort of questioned whether I was even with them, which was ridiculous, but that's another story. And the person that came to, I guess, question my boyfriend, Jamal, or my husband right now at the time, they brought this guy that was fully decked out in like a military army gear, had a gun, had a dog, and they questioned him hard. And then they kept going back to this one question about, well, are you hungry? And they were trying to get at the fact, well, this is what I think, but he's a black man, he must have drugs on him, and then that would lead to hunger, so maybe that's a way we get it out of him. And they were drilling him hard, and it was really strange because we were together, our belongings were like mixed in each other's bags, and it was just uncalled for, too much. And that happened in Costa Rica. And then more recently, so that was when it was just the 2 of us and we were dating. More recently, just this past January, on our trip to Mexico with our boys, and if you've been to Mexico, you know this, you press, when you go to clear customs or security, you press a button, and green means go, you pass, walk through the doors, and red means stop, and they'll search you. So for our family, the button was hit and we got a green. So my boys and I, we start walking, and Jamal's right there with us with the bags. And we cross through, they stop him, and they shut the doors on him. We got green, so why are they stopping him? You know why they're stopping him. So that was just another ridiculous thing to happen, again, at the start of our vacation, which, is not like a great way to start, but this kind of stuff happens all the time. Like, yeah, it sounds like it's little minor stuff, and some of it is, but not everyone has to deal with it. But it happens all the time, and we're just, you almost get used to it, but you shouldn't.
Ashton went to school for police foundations. There was a time a couple years ago where he was trying to pursue being a police officer, and he, went through the whole process a couple of times. You fail a test, go back and redo it, study, get a mentor, and every time he would get a little further, a door wouldn't open, and then he'd try again, and every time he'd get another further, a door wouldn't open. They sent everybody an email that weren't successful for the second interview, and they gave him pretty much another chance to do it. So that was it. We thought, this is it, Ashton, like, this chance of a lifetime. He studied for it for weeks. We both prepped for it, got his suit ready, woke up bright and early, went to sleep early that night, woke up bright and early, went downtown, and he was ready to do the interview with the officers. But the minute that he walked in, a police officer, a woman, she pretty much treated him like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Oh, I'm here for the interview, blah, blah, blah. Okay, hold on a second. Let me look at your background. Wait a minute. Your background's hold on. So let me ask you a couple questions. So now she started interrogating him, asking him questions in the manner of so do you drink? Do you smoke? No, I don't. You don't drink and you don't smoke? Kind of giving off that vibe, like he was less than. And then she was like, you know what? Your background doesn't even pass the criteria to move on to the next round. So I don't even know why you're here. I don't even know why they let you come here. She broke Ashton down so bad to the point where and then the other officer, I think there was another officer there, Ashton, that was trying to encourage her to encourage her to let him just do the interview. Like, you know, who cares? He's here already for the interview, just let him go. And she was like, absolutely not. I don't even know why you're here. I don't even know why you wasted your time. You need to go home. You're not going in. And I think that was the last straw for Ashton, and something broke in him that day, because that's probably the lowest and the most painful pit of pain that I ever seen my husband.
Police encounter, the one that sticks out in my mind, I was not with him. However, he called me. We live in a majority white suburb of Houston, and it was in the middle of the day. He was at the mall, driving to the mall. He was pulled over in the mall parking lot for not having a visible front license, which it was in the window, but it's supposed to be on the front of the car. However, he did call me, so that from my perspective, it was that so I could hear in case anything were to go wrong. And I could hear the police officer speaking to him very aggressively. And the thing that really stuck out was that he was pulled over for a non-visible license plate. However, the police officer asked him repeatedly if he had drugs or guns in the car. And every time he asked him, of course, Kevin got more agitated and irritated with the question, in which the police officer was very antagonizing because of that. And of course, I was on the phone hearing everything, getting very upset myself. But I just knew that had that been someone that looked like me, a man that looked like me, that question would never get asked. And that's upsetting and that's sad.
Well, the fact that he gets treated differently, him being afraid to walk down the street, down the sidewalk, when there's, a Caucasian girl walking down the street and she has to cross the street because she is afraid, him knowing that is what is happening, and having the understanding and realization. Also, the fact that when he's with his white friends, that he's more of a target. Having any issues with him being pulled over by police. There's a couple of times, one specific incident where he ran out of gas and Ron was on his way to come and help him, and the police stopped and were questioning him. What are you doing? He was just trying to explain, my dad's on his way to help me because I ran out of gas, but he felt that they were questioning him unnecessarily. Another time he got pulled over and got a ticket for not having the sticker in the right spot on his license, which, yes, it is not the correct thing. However, they could have maybe given him a warning. Yes, the other thing with regards to my son is the talk. If you're not sure what that is, I encourage you to look it up in terms of the talk that black men have with their sons, whether they're black or biracial, when they get pulled over by the police. Ryan has had that talk with our son more specifically than our daughters. Unfortunately, having to make sure that he knows what to do and how to, approach the situation if it ever or when it arises.
Spoken about this lightly, briefly, and Ashton has said, I don't think Noah's ever going to have it as bad as I have. And I think that's because Noah is lighter. Although it still doesn't mean that he won't be a victim to the racism and the systematic racism that's in place. Because despite him being a little bit lighter than Ashton, he still has the indigenous features, he still has the hair that, they try and discriminate them for. So, I guess I'm going to eventually have a conversation with my son at some point, maybe when he's 10 or 11, me and Ashton, about what to do if you're ever stopped by a police officer, or if a police officer ever takes you into custody. I want my son to be aware of how he's viewed in this society because he's Black, and I want him to understand that although they may not like you or they may hate you because of the color of your skin, I don't ever want him to lower his chin and put his head down to feel like he's less than. However, I do want him to come home safe. So I hope that he doesn't, I don't know, it's so tough. You want your children to stand up for what is right, stand up for who you are and what you are. But at the same time, if they are raised with that type of strength and with that type of dignity, and then they go out into the world, like, I could risk losing my son. So my concern right now is finding that balance and not losing my son because he was trying to stand up for what is right. I don't know what's worse.
A lot. Those started the day I found out. So I guess week 20 is when you find out the gender of your baby, if you want to find out. And we found out we were having a boy on week 20 for both of them. And as overjoyed as I was to know that the baby's healthy and all that good stuff, I'd be lying if I didn't say there was a bit of anxiety inside of me, because I knew I was not just having a boy, I was having a Black boy, and I knew what that meant in this world, in this day and age, with the current state of affairs the way they are. So right now, my fears or my concerns with the boys, everyone stops us, says they're cute, they're adorable, they're so thoughtful, they're so nice, and they are thoughtful and loving kids. But right now, what I fear is exclusion, because I know that would just hurt them, and being picked on. We haven't experienced too much of it, but at the playground it's happened. And is it because of the color of their skin? I mean, we do live in a predominantly white area. I don't know, but you see other kids get included that don't know the other kids, and ours don't, and your mind goes there. What I worry about more so is as they get older, everyone knows the story of the 12-year-old boy who was playing with a toy gun, and within seconds the officer murdered him. And that is just beyond, I don't even know the right words. It's beyond disgusting. It's beyond believable, but it happens. What I always wonder is, when will the comments of cuteness and adoration change to fear, being in fear of them, or looking at them as a threat? And I'm hoping that this momentum that we're seeing and the more eyes that we're seeing open, I'm hoping that there'll be change for the future of our boys, because I definitely didn't want to bring them up into a world where they wouldn't be treated fairly because of the color of their skin, where they wouldn't be given the same opportunities because of the color of their skin, where they would be feared because of the color of their skin, and people wouldn't get to know them. So I'm hoping and I'm praying and I'm trying to be part of the change that I hope will happen, so that not only my boys but everyone's children can live in a better world than we are in today.
Our son, we don't have a son, we have a godson, and we have 2 daughters. My concerns and fear for them are that they're going to be judged by the color of their skin, that they could be harmed. Even with having daughters, it's a fear. that they're going to be judged, and just the reality that however they may be perceived, if they come out to be perceived as white women, that their struggle will be less, and that I have 2 daughters and that they could be completely different and their life experiences could be totally different if one has darker skin than the other. And that's sad. When we, like I said, when we decided to have children, we talked a lot more about race. And it's very important to us that we are the ones that teach them to love themselves and to love their brown skin and to love their curly hair, should they have curly hair. But it's very important to us because we know at some point in their lives, probably early on, someone will try to spin those beautiful things about them as a negativity, and we want them to already be proud of themselves and not let those thoughts creep in. So even now, I read a book to my oldest daughter. She's not even 2, but I do read a book to her about loving her brown skin, and it's very eye-opening to know that I have to do that for my not even 2-year-old daughter, but that's something that we have to do with our daughters, to make sure that they know to love themselves. And people, white people don't have to do that with their kids. So we want to make sure that they love themselves, and that's the concerns for the babies that I love, is that they won't have the same experiences in life, or they'll have negative experiences in life, all based on the color of their skin, and that makes me very sad.
Talk about is the fact that Caucasian people feel, because I'm Caucasian, that I have the same beliefs that they do. I've been out several times, whether it's at a store or out and about, and wink wink, nudge nudge, kind of like the conversation alludes itself to, oh, what is that black person doing over there, or different situations. Even a situation that came up last summer, I had Melissa's car and it didn't start, so long story short, I was getting help from a Caucasian man, and it was pouring rain. Ryan was coming back from work, couldn't get a hold of him, and he said, while I'm charging the battery, do you want to just sit in the truck? And having conversation, he started telling me about his granddaughter and how she's into Muay Thai. She's 17, and there were some boys making fun of her friend who was a friend of hers, and how his granddaughter had tackled them to the ground. And then he brought up the fact that they were black, and that you'd be afraid that they might come and pull a gun the next time, so to be afraid because they were black. Shortly after that, Ryan pulled up, and the man took off, and it was just a very interesting situation to be in. And just thinking about everything that's been in the media and social media with regards to white privilege and ignorance and things like that, it's not an excuse anymore. There is awareness. There's no reason for anyone to have these beliefs, and we need to look forward to what we can do within our communities to make a change. Thank you.